Tired of scientific jargon? Get the facts without the friction. This is Weekly Digested Science, where we translate the world's most significant peer-reviewed research into your weekly news update. For a trustworthy source of knowledge, hit like and subscribe.
Okay, let's get into this really fundamental question. Why do we even have music?
It's such a huge question.
Right. I mean, why did our brains, our bodies, evolve this specific ability to hear and make and just feel rhythm and melody?
It's one of those things that feels so uniquely human, so essential, but when you look at it scientifically, it's actually still a huge puzzle.
To kind of set the stage, let's think back just a couple years. The COVID-19 pandemic. Do you remember that global musical response?
Oh, absolutely. The people in Italy singing from their balconies?
Exactly. Yeah. Or, the communal clapping for frontline workers. Or that cellist Yo-Yo Ma when he started the hashtag Song Self-Comfort Project online.
That whole moment, it really highlighted something critical, I think. When we were all forced into isolation, when our normal ways of talking were, strained, humans just immediately, almost instinctively, turned to music. It became this essential social tool, a way to feel that connection, that affiliation, without actually being in the same room.
It totally did. And that throws us straight into the core conflict we're going to tackle in this deep dive, the famous skepticism from the cognitive scientist Steven Pinker.
Ah, yes. Auditory cheesecake.
Auditory cheesecake. The idea that music is just this pleasure-generating thing, totally useless for survival. Just a nice side effect of a brain that was built for something else, like language.
Right. And Pinker's argument was so powerful because it really forced the question. I mean, music takes up a lot of brain power. If it doesn't help you find food or, run away from a lion, why bother?
But the evolutionary roots might go way deeper.
Well, exactly. If you go all the way back to Charles Darwin, back in 1871, his original idea was actually pretty simple. He thought music played a huge role in sexual selection.
Mate attraction.
Mate attraction.
So, is music a hardwired survival adaptation like language, or is it just, the delicious, unnecessary icing on our evolutionary cake?
That's our mission today. We're going to unpack these competing theories from Darwin to cutting-edge global neuroscience and figure out what the science says music means to you today.
Beyond just a catchy tune.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we start with Darwin's sexual selection idea, you find some really compelling evidence out there in the animal kingdom, specifically when you look at polygynous species.
Let's pause there for a sec. For anyone listening, what exactly does polygynous mean here?
It just means a mating system where, one male mates with a lot of females.
Okay, so high competition.
Insane competition. It creates this intense pressure on the males to stand out. Think of male songbirds. They have to perform these really complex courtship signals, fancy feathers, but critically, these elaborate songs. They're constantly trying to prove they have the best genes.
And on the flip side, what's the advantage for the females in that system? They evolve superior sensory skills. They get better at detecting and discriminating between these signals so they can pick the fittest mate. And we see this in the lab. Female black-capped chickadees are way better than males at telling the difference between pitch ratios in male songs.
Wow.
It's a clear, undeniable, sexually selected advantage.
So that leads to the slightly uncomfortable question. Does this apply to us? To humans, are we just, fancy songbirds with guitars instead of feathers?
Well, there's that one really fun study.
The guitar case study.
Right.
The finding that a man just carrying a guitar case got almost 3 times as many positive responses from women in a real-world setting.
Compared to carrying a sports bag, yeah.
A sports bag. It's hilarious.
It is. And it's a great little snapshot of how musical skill can be used as a signal, for sure. An indicator of fitness or, desirable personality traits. But we have to be careful to distinguish that from musical processing, our core ability to understand music being the actual driver of evolution.
And this is where the big data comes in and kind of throws a wrench in the simple sexual selection theory.
It really does. Researchers did this staggering global study. We're talking over 500,000 participants.
Wow. 562,000 people.
A huge sample. And they tested basic human music perception. Things like melodic discrimination, beat alignment. Now, if sexual selection was the main driver, you'd expect to see massive species-defining differences between men and women.
Like with the chickadees.
Exactly. You'd expect one sex to be way, way better than the other.
And what did this enormous study find? in our fundamental ability to process melody and rhythm.
Well, they did find differences, and they were statistically significant. But, and this is the huge takeaway, the size of the effects was tiny.
So not a big deal.
Incredibly small. So small compared to the huge differences you see in animals that are clearly under sexual selection. The difference was, honestly, so negligible. It just can't be the evolutionary engine that built our entire complex musical capacity from the ground up.
Okay, so while you can definitely use musical talent on a date, our whole cognitive infrastructure for music wasn't primarily built for dating.
It feels more like a tool we repurposed for it.
Right.
Exactly. So we need another theory, one that accounts for music's really deep ancient roots and its obvious connection to language. And this brings us to what's called the co-evolution compromise.
The musolanguage model.
The musolanguage model, yeah. Proposed by Stephen Brown. And it suggests that language and music didn't evolve one after the other. Instead, they co-evolved from a single ancestral communication system.
So they grew up together as parallel developments serving different functions. Music wasn't just a later byproduct of language.
And we have brain evidence to back this up. Neurocognitive research shows that music activates phylogenetically older areas of the brain than language does.
Older.
Yeah, these are the deep ancestral structures we share with many other species. Music is seated in the very foundation of the human mind, which, highlights its ancient importance.
That deep history makes perfect sense then. Why music making is a human universal, found in every culture throughout all of history. It must have served some other foundational role for social organization.
And that role is what we call the social bonding hypothesis. And recent work has added this fascinating piece to the puzzle, trying to explain when and why this bonding adaptation really took off.
This is the nocturnal evolution theory, which I find just so cool.
It's a great theory. It basically says that the habitual, controlled use of fire, starting maybe 300 or 400,000 years ago, it just changed everything.
How so?
Well, fire creates a safe, lit-up home base. And that allowed for expanded evening socializing in much bigger groups.
So after a long day of hunting and gathering, you don't just go to sleep, you have this whole new chunk of social time.
Right. But that new environment also created new problems. You've got darkness, predators, the need for everyone to stay vigilant together. And this is where music steps in. It served multiple adaptive purposes around that ancestral fire.
It's the ultimate way to pass the time when you can't see much. And making music together, specifically singing, that ties right back to our biology, right? What's going on inside our brains?
You see this amazing integration of the brain's reward system with its social system. There are two key neurochemicals at play here. First, there's oxytocin.
The social hormone.
The social hormone, yeah. It's crucial for bonding and attachment. And second, there's dopamine, the main chemical of the reward system. It teaches us what's good and what we should repeat.
And when we sing together, what happens?
Well, making music together, especially synchronized stuff like singing or drumming, it increases dopamine, which feels good. And that rewarding behavior then leads to the release of oxytocin.
So it literally wires us together chemically.
It does. It promotes this profound sense of social affiliation and connection. The brain circuits for reward and for social bonding, you're talking the VTA, the nucleus accumbens, the PFC, they have substantial physical overlap. Music is just uniquely positioned to link individual pleasure with collective satisfaction.
So music literally became the evolutionary social glue that held these bigger nocturnal groups together. It strengthened coalitions. It reduced conflict.
And it was the perfect form of communication for nighttime. Acoustic signals are fast, they're flexible, they travel long distances, and they get around obstacles when you can't see.
That makes sense.
And music is louder and way more repetitive than speech, which is just crucial for cutting through the noise of a crackling fire and, 100 other people.
Yeah.
That repetition also makes it a fantastic mnemonic device.
A memory aid.
A great memory aid. You can encode history or instructions into a song way more effectively than just speaking them.
So around that campfire, music was doing everything. It was our school, our conflict resolution, our long-distance vision in the dark.
It was all of that. And it probably still served as the night gala dress for sexual signaling, too.
Yeah.
A much safer, lower energy way to show off when everyone needed to stay vigilant.
Okay, so now that we've established music as this profound social tool, we hit another problem, the core cognitive science challenge.
Right. How much of our musicality is innate, genetically hardwired, and how much is just learned from our culture, nature versus nurture?
Because to argue it's a true evolutionary adaptation, it has to be hardwired, right? It needs to be domain-specific, meaning it uses brain mechanisms that are not just borrowed from language or other skills.
Exactly. If it just uses general cognitive machinery, it could be what's called an exaptation, which is, useful, but still an evolutionary byproduct. It kind of takes us back towards Pinker's cheesecake.
So what's the evidence for an innate, hardwired musical ability?
Well, there are a few fundamental building blocks that really do seem to be innate biases. The top candidate is probably beat induction.
Beat induction, that's the skill that lets us, tap our feet or dance?
Precisely. It's
Yeah.
a cognitive skill to hear a regular, predictable pulse in sound.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fundamental because that's what allows us to synchronize our actions as a group.
For rituals or work or marching.
All of it. And crucially, research suggests this ability to perceive and respond to a beat is active in newborns. In tiny infants, they don't have to be taught how to feel the beat. They just do.
Which would suggest it's an innate bias, not something they learn from being rocked by their parents.
Exactly. The core framework seems to be biological. But then culture comes in and just dramatically shapes the outcome.
Let's look at a clear example of that, of cultural learning kind of overriding the biology.
A perfect one is the 1-7-4-3 idiom in Western music.
Okay, what is that?
It's a specific melodic pattern. It uses the first, seventh, fourth, and third notes of a musical scale. In the late 18th century, composers like Haydn and Beethoven used this pattern all the time. It was a hugely popular musical convention of that era. It communicated like certainty and resolution.
So it was like a cultural shorthand. You hear that pattern and you know how to feel.
You get it instantly. But get this, its use just fell off a cliff in the 19th century. It was replaced by other newer, more fashionable harmonic ideas. So this shows that these really sophisticated musical rules can be purely cultural constructs.
That's fascinating. So our ability to hear pitch might be innate, but the rules we expect those pitches to follow are entirely learned.
And historically, they can change very, very quickly. It's a powerful piece of evidence that culture can essentially reprogram how we organize sound.
Even for something as complex as our whole system of keys and harmony.
Yeah, even things like the Western tonal hierarchy. The fact that some notes and keys feel more important than others, that can be accurately modeled by neural networks using unsupervised learning.
Meaning
You don't need a lot of innate pre-programmed rules. A system can learn all that complexity just by being exposed to a culture's music over and over again.
Yeah.
So music is always in this dynamic tension between what our biology gives us and what our culture demands.
Which brings us to the modern paradox. If music evolved as this essential social glue for the group, how are we using it today, when most of us are listening alone, with headphones on?
Well, researchers looked at this exact question. They analyzed over 500 proposed functions of music from all over, and they distilled them down to the big three core dimensions of modern listening.
The big three. Okay, what's number one? The most common use.
Arousal and mood regulation.
Okay.
Overwhelmingly, this is the most common use. It's the background strategy. People use music to manage their emotional state. To relieve boredom, that scored super highly, by the way,
I believe it.
or to create a nice vibe for working or driving or exercising. It's all about managing your internal energy.
So we're basically using music as a soundtrack to keep us motivated or calm.
Got it.
Okay, what's the second dimension?
The second is self-awareness.
Yeah.
This is more of a personal journey. The intentional use of music for introspection.
Thinking about your life.
Exactly. Using music to reflect on your identity, to consciously process your emotions, or just to reminisce about life experiences. The finding that music helps people reminisce scored a 4.62 out of 6, which shows how deep and private this relationship is for people today.
So music helping you understand you, a tool for emotional intelligence and memory.
Okay, so we have managing our internal state and managing our identity. Where does the original evolutionary driver-social connection fit in?
That's the third dimension, social relatedness. This is all about affiliation, feeling connected to friends, or, identifying with a certain music scene. And here is the really counterintuitive finding.
What is it?
Social relatedness was the lowest rated function.
Wait, what? Lowest. The very thing we think it evolved for is the thing we use it for the least?
The contemporary Western societies, yes. For example, the statement, I listen to music because it is a group experience, rated a 2.0 out of 6.
That's really low. It's the modern paradox. We went from a collective environment, singing around the fire to bond the group, to a highly individualistic one, where music is mostly used for private mood control and self-management. It reflects a huge cultural shift.
That is a powerful conclusion. Our musical capacity, which was once for communal integration, has now been sort of co-opted for individual analysis.
I think so. Language promoted individual awareness, analysis. Music promoted communal integration, synthesis. And that tension between the heart and the mind, the group, and the self, it still defined how we use these tools today.
So it's clear music is not just Cheesecake. It's this highly multifunctional mental adaptation forged in the fires of, social necessity. It's this constant interplay between our biology, that innate ability to feel the beat, and the cultural rules we layer on top.
And that interplay never stops. That 1743 idiom shows how quickly musical culture can shift and reprogram our expectations, which keeps music fresh and relevant as a form of communication.
So while the big studies show we mostly use music for private self-management today, consider this: the spontaneous communal singing that popped up all over the world during that period of isolation, that proved music's ancient group-focused purpose is just latent. It's just waiting
for a crisis to reemerge.
Exactly. Its ability to provide that profound connection when we were all forced apart suggests that music is just waiting for a collective need to remind you of its fundamental unifying power. Does that shift from collective cohesion to individual comfort actually change the nature of music? Or does our need for comfort just prove that its purpose remains, at its core, totally adaptive? That's something to think about next time you put on your headphones.
Under the canopy where shadows play, crickets sing secrets at the edge of day. A bird calls sharp like a question in the